The crowded corridors of Zephyria Station smelled of ozone and metal, the hum of engines and chatter of alien tongues blending into a chaotic symphony. For most inhabitants, life on the station was a delicate balance of survival and protocol. For Jaren, a human who had somehow drifted into this world, life was something far more tenuous. He shuffled along the narrow walkway, robes tattered and face streaked with grime, clutching a small pack of salvaged components. The Zephyrian traders sneered at him as he passed, their long limbs casting eerie shadows under the fluorescent lights. He could hear them whispering, punctuated by bursts of laughter. "Look at him," hissed one with 4 segmented eyes. "A human, wearing nothing but rags and rust. They say he scavenges from the engine's core." Another snickered. "Do you think he even knows what he's touching?" Jaren ignored them. Mockery was nothing new, not in this sector. Humans were rare here, outsiders whose frail bodies and limited knowledge made them targets for amusement or disdain. But Jaren had survived on scraps and scraps alone for months, eking out a living from broken circuits, discarded tools, and the occasional stolen ration. Survival had taught him more than school ever did. Yet, as he ducked into a dim alcove to inspect a malfunctioning energy cell, he didn't know his life was about to change forever. Chapter 1. The Arrival of the Queen. The announcement boomed across the station. A visitor of unprecedented importance was arriving. Zephyria Station had hosted dignitaries, merchants, and warlords, but this arrival carried a weight beyond comprehension. The Queen of Zithyrus herself would grace the station with her presence. The station erupted into activity. Markets shuttered, corridors cleared, and the usually boisterous traders bowed deeply to any approaching emissaries. Jaren, however, stayed in the shadows, inspecting his scavenged tools and ignoring the pomp. He had no interest in royalty and no expectation of recognition. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. The Queen arrived not in a starship, but on a gravity-bending platform that hovered silently above the central atrium. Her form was both beautiful and terrifying, a towering figure with iridescent skin that shifted color with her emotions, eyes that seemed to pierce the soul, and a crown that pulsed with energy that could light an entire city. Every step she took echoed through the station, as if the air itself bowed to her will. Her attendants moved like shadows, ensuring that nothing disturbed her path. Everyone but Jaren, that is. The human vagrant had stumbled into the atrium, barefoot and covered in grime, carrying a small bundle of tech he had hoped to sell for food. The murmurs began immediately. "Is that a human? Wretched creature. Who let him in?" Jaren froze, but not out of fear. Out of instinct, he realized he was standing in the presence of something monumental. His heart pounded in his chest, not from anxiety, but from recognition of opportunity. Humans might be weak in this sector, but power, he had learned, often revealed itself in moments no one expected. And the Queen noticed. Her eyes, the color of molten silver, swept across the atrium and locked on him. Every whisper, every laugh, and every sneer seemed to vanish as if the air itself had expelled them. The Queen stopped in front of him. "You," she said. Her voice was deep yet melodic, vibrating with authority. "Step forward." The station fell silent. Even the buzzing engines seemed to pause. Jaren hesitated. No one had ever spoken to him with such command, and yet it wasn't fear that held him. It was something far stranger. Recognition. He stepped forward. Chapter 2. The Test. The Queen's gaze studied him like a jeweler inspecting a rough gem. Her attendants whispered amongst themselves, unsure of how to proceed. "Why are you here, human?" she asked, her voice a melody of judgment and curiosity. Jaren cleared his throat. You survive. I salvage." That is all." The queen tilted her head, intrigued. "Survival. And yet you are more than mere survival. Tell me, human, what is your name?" "Jaren," he replied simply. The queen smiled faintly, a gesture that made her appear both warmer and more alien. "Jaren," she repeated, "there is power in you that others cannot see. Power you do not yet understand." Laughter rippled through the crowd, a nervous attempt to mask disbelief. Humans were weak, fragile, and utterly insignificant compared to the Zytherians, the Zorvans, and the other races that dominated this quadrant. The notion of one commanding the attention of the queen was absurd. "Do not mock him," the queen warned. Her voice shifted, vibrating with subtle energy. The station's lights flickered in response, and the laughing traders felt a cold pressure in their chests, a warning they could not ignore. She extended her hand, fingers tipped with glowing energy. "You will come with me, human. You will learn. You will be trained. And one day, you will understand why you are no longer a vagrant." Jaren stared at her, stunned. It was not an offer, it was a decree. Chapter 3. The journey begins. Jaren was taken aboard the Queen's vessel, a ship of impossible geometry that seemed to fold space itself. The corridors were vast, the walls humming with energy, and strange glyphs floated in the air, inscribing themselves and vanishing like fleeting thoughts. The Queen did not speak much during the journey, but her presence alone was instructive. She communicated with gestures and subtle waves of thought, guiding Jaren through exercises that challenged both body and mind. He learned to manipulate energy fields, understand alien technology, and even anticipate the movements of those around him. It was grueling. He fell more times than he could count, his body bruised and battered, his mind stretched to the limits. But the more he struggled, the more he grew. And with each success, the Queen's interest in him deepened. "You learn quickly," she noted one day. "Faster than most who have had centuries of training." I don't know why," Jaren admitted. "I only survive because I have no choice." "Then you will understand," she said, eyes glinting. "Survival is the foundation of power. Those who survive without fear of failure often become unstoppable." By the time the ship reached Zithris, Jaren was no longer the filthy vagrant who had shivered in the alleys of Zephyria Station. He stood tall, his eyes clear and steady, his mind sharp. He carried himself with a quiet authority, one that even the Queen acknowledged with approval. Chapter 4. The Challenge Zithris was a world of crystalline spires and energy rivers, a place where thought itself shaped reality. The Queen brought Jaren to the Hall of Trials, a place where potential rulers were tested against impossible odds. "You will face challenges designed to strip you of pretense and expose your true nature," the Queen explained. "Few survive here. Fewer still thrive." The first trial was physical, navigating a labyrinth filled with shifting gravity, collapsing bridges, and energy traps. Jaren moved with precision, relying not on strength alone but on intuition and observation. Many who had studied Zithris for decades would have faltered. Jaren adapted in moments. Next came the trial of mind, a psychic gauntlet where he was confronted with illusions drawn from his deepest fears. Faces of mockers from Zephyria Station leered at him, whispering doubts and threats. But Jaren remembered the Queen's words, "Survival is the foundation of power." He forced himself to breathe, to see the illusions for what they were, and to move forward. Finally came the trial of purpose, where he was shown potential futures, each shaped by a choice he might make. One path led to domination, another to oppression, and yet another to peace. He had to choose not only wisely, but with vision beyond human comprehension. He chose wisely. Chapter 5. The transformation emerging from the trials, Jaren was no longer just a human. He was something greater, a bridge between species, a symbol of adaptability and cunning. The Queen watched him with pride, though she rarely allowed such emotion to show. "You have passed," she announced to the assembly of Zytherian nobles. "The human who was laughed at has claimed his place among us. He is no longer a vagrant, but a force to be reckoned with." Gasps filled the hall. Aliens who had once sneered at him now bowed deeply. Those who had mocked his tattered form and fragile body were silenced, some in awe, others in fear. The Queen extended her hand again, this time in recognition. "Jaren," she said, "you will serve as my envoy, my strategist, and my champion. Others may have doubted your worth, but I have claimed you for a reason." Jaren felt the weight of responsibility settle upon him, heavier than any pack of scavenged tools, but also more empowering than he had ever imagined. Chapter 6. The New Order. Jaren's rise was not without resistance. Factions within Zytheris resented the human outsider, plotting against him in whispers and secret councils. But Jaren, guided by the Queen and hardened by years of survival, outmaneuvered them at every turn. He implemented strategies that blended human ingenuity with Zytherian power, turning what was once mockery into unmatched advantage. The vagrant who had once scavenged for scraps became a leader whose plans reshaped political alliances across the sector. The Queen watched, occasionally smiling, as Jaren consolidated influence. She had claimed him, yes, but she had also unleashed something the galaxy had never seen, a human who had survived ridicule, danger, and the unknown, only to rise as a master of interstellar strategy. Chapter 7. The Legacy. Years later, stories of the human vagrant who had captured the Queen's attention spread across the stars. Children of multiple species learned of his journey, the humans and aliens alike inspired by the tale of resilience and cunning. Jaren stood atop the crystalline spire of Zytheris, looking out at the galaxy with the Queen at his side. No longer laughed at, no longer dismissed, he understood the truth the Queen had seen all along. Survival was merely the beginning. Power, influence, and legacy came to those who endured, adapted, and seized opportunity when the universe offered it. They laughed, Jaren said quietly to the Queen. "And yet, here I am." The Queen's eyes glimmered. "You were always more than they could see. And now, you are exactly what this galaxy needs." And with that, the human who had once been a vagrant claimed not just a place in a queen's court, but a legend that would endure across centuries. As the twin suns of Zytheris set, casting prismatic light across the crystalline towers, Jaren felt the weight of his journey settle, not as a burden, but as proof. The human who had once shuffled in rags through the corridors of Zephyria Station was now a figure whose presence commanded respect across the stars. The Queen stood beside him, her hand brushing his shoulder in a rare gesture of warmth. "Do you understand now?" she asked softly. "You were never meant to remain a vagrant. The universe has ways of testing its champions." Jaren looked out over the sprawling city below, the energy rivers reflecting the fading light like ribbons of fire. "I understand," he replied. They laughed, but it wasn't their laughter that mattered. It was what I did after. The Queen's eyes glimmered, almost mirroring the stars above. "And what you did changed everything." Across the galaxy, whispers of his name spread. Alien warlords reconsidered alliances, human colonies looked to him as a symbol of hope, and even the most cynical Zytherians acknowledged that the human vagrant had become something extraordinary, a bridge between species, a mind unmatched in cunning, and a living testament to the truth the Queen had seen from the start. Jaren felt a quiet satisfaction, one that no power or title could replace. He had survived mockery, hatred, and near-impossible trials. He had adapted, endured, and ultimately transformed. But most importantly, he had learned that true strength was not measured by muscle or birthright, but by vision, courage, and the will to rise when the world refused to see your worth. The Queen extended her hand toward the horizon. There are new worlds to explore, new challenges to meet, and new stories to write. Jaren clasped her hand, feeling the pulse of infinite possibilities. Then let's go, he said. Together, we'll make them remember the human they once laughed at. And so, with the twin suns setting behind them and the galaxies stretching infinitely before them, the human vagrant, once ridiculed, once dismissed, stepped forward, no longer a shadow, but a legend whose story would echo across the stars for generations to come.